Well, it's a little complicated, literally.
First of all, you got a lot of traffic that exits at 8 Mile. Then the rest of your traffic going south between 7 Mile down to the interchange with 96 to the east, M14 to the west. And those ramps split.
Do you know which lane you need to be in? Well, that's great, but you still need to keep an eye out for drivers who don't know where they're going.
So if you're not sure where your road is, you go from either the far left, turns out you need to be on the far right, which is 4 lanes over, and we get the side swipes, we get the rear ends, or do you stay on 275 to keep going south? So you really have 3 choices at that point, and that's why we do get a lot of crashes.
It's those last-minute mistakes that can cause a crash. There's a breakdown of the data. October saw the most crashes with 108. April saw the least with 70. Crashes were more likely to occur on a Friday, least likely to occur on a Sunday. And 5 o'clock in the evening was the time of day that saw the most crashes. 4 spots. This map shows all 4 spots where you are most likely to crash on I-96. If you take a look, 2 are in the city, right there, number 3 and 4, and then 2 are in the suburbs, as we just named. The second one in Novi, the first one there in Plymouth. Scan the QR code on your screen. When you head to clickondetroit.com for my full investigation, you'll be able to see our deep dive into that data. Like this pie chart, we broke it all up into different sections so you can exactly understand what happens, like the types of crashes reported. 46% of these crashes are single vehicle crashes. 28% were rear end crashes, and then side swipes were 21%. A lot of information there posted on clickondetroit.com.
Staying on the same subject of roads and crashes, MDOT has a plan aimed at reducing crashes and travel time along I-96 with some new rules for the on-ramps. New ramp meters will take effect later this week on 8 entrance ramps to I-96 between Novi Road and Milford Road. Ramp metering, if you don't know, is a system of managing traffic on the freeway entrance ramps. So soon, you're going to start seeing traffic lights designed to assist drivers merging onto the freeway during peak traffic times. This is a rendering of what it will look like here. MDOT says the meters will not only reduce stop-and-go traffic, but also reduce crashes and make for shorter travel times. On Wednesday at 6 p.m., the ramp meters will begin to go into operation one at a time over the next couple of weeks.
We need some help over there, right, Kim? When I was doing that story, I saw you like, I get confused too.
I do too. It is a mess. I've driven out that way dozens of times, and every time I still get anxiety.
I do.
Yeah,
I get, well, no anxiety on the weather because it is gorgeous out there.
That's right. Let's get over to Ron Hilliard. It is nice.
Very nice. You know, Kimberly, Karen, it is hot all across the country. We are seeing those temps right now in Metro Detroit, about 80 degrees. That's hot, but it is not nearly as hot as what some other parts of the country are seeing right now. 93 in Dallas, 99 as you go into New Mexico, 113 in central portions of Arizona. We are going to be seeing hotter conditions right here in Metro Detroit as well. So it is a pleasant day when it comes to the sunshine for people who like the warmth and sunshine, but we do have some showers and thunderstorms in our forecast. Those will be arriving on Wednesday and maybe a pop-up shower tomorrow. Now, in the meantime, if you want to enjoy this warmth, you can go out there and do pretty much any outdoor activities and it'll be just fine. Now, later as we get into the week and by the weekend, some of that heat could be potentially dangerous for some people. We're going to be in the 70s this evening, going into the nighttime hours. In the 60s still, it is going to be pretty nice out there. Now, I'm going to talk about the warmth on the way, the storms in our forecast, and some really hot weather. And there's the hint right there, 90s are in the forecast.
Well, we've all been there. You know it's time for bed, but you just fall asleep on the couch.
No problem, right? Well, some doctors say it may be something to avoid, and we'll tell you more about it next.
Okay, so it's a feeling some of us all know too well. You want to get ready for bed, but then you're tired, and then you're on the couch, and then you're comfortable, and then you fall asleep, and then you're like, wow, what was I thinking?
And before you know it, boom. It might not seem like it's that big of a deal, but experts say sofa sleeping on a regular basis could be a sign of something more serious.
We develop good habits and we develop bad habits. And it's just so common for us to fall asleep in the evening time watching TV. And it's not good to be spending much time sleeping outside of your bedroom.
That's because when we wake up, we often have a tough time falling back asleep, says Dr. Nancy Foldberry, a sleep specialist at the Cleveland Clinic.
What happens then is you wake up and kind of get exposed to light. If you walk through the kitchen, which is still got lights on, that light is stimulating. And by the time we get into bed, we don't feel sleepy anymore.
If you're falling asleep on the couch a lot, she recommends trying another evening activity like reading.
I often tell my patients to just, if you're sleepy, go to bed, because that may be a signal, even if it's earlier in the evening, that you're sleep deprived. 1 in 3 Americans are really significantly sleep deprived to the extent that it can affect our health adversely.
Because sofas are generally not as supportive as a mattress, routinely sleeping on the couch can also lead to neck and back pain, muscle stiffness, and poor quality sleep. It may also worsen conditions such as GERD or sleep apnea. If you're consistently having trouble staying awake in the evenings, it can be a red flag.
And if you've got a disorder of sleep, you've got some dysfunction of sleep for most nights of the week for 3 consecutive months, that's enough to go and talk to your doctor about. And that may even be enough of a problem to warrant some sort of a sleep test or to see a sleep expert.
Well, Dr. Foldberry says 10 to 15 minutes is about all we can doze before it will prevent us from falling asleep that night. So if you have someone else at home, tell them to wake you up if you happen to just nod off.
Now, forewarned weather with Exact Track 4D.
I was going to say, that's a tough job. Like, so
Easier
it's like,
said
oh,
than
I'm sorry,
done.
you're
That's
enjoying
right.
your sleep. Wake up.
Wake up, exactly. All right.
All right, I should be talking about the weather. Ron is working on that.
Hey, Ron.
We are looking at some really, really hot weather here in Metro Detroit. It is going to be in the 90s as we go into next week. Right now, we're right around 80 degrees, so a lot of us can pretty much deal with that. But as you get into the 90-degree territory, well, that's something that a lot of us are just not ready for. Maybe some of us are, but 80 right now is the current temp in Romulus. Winds are rather light, right around 5 to 10 miles per hour, mostly coming out of the south, but we're seeing some different wind directions as well. The heat index is at 81. We will notice tomorrow that the actual air temperature will be in the upper 80s, but then when you add in the humidity, it's going to feel closer to 90 degrees. We're at 77 in Sandusky, 79 in Mount Clemens, 82 in Adrian. Things are going to be really, really warm out there in Metro Detroit and all of Southeast Michigan. So we do have the clouds right now popping up here in Southeast Michigan as you go into central portions of Oakland County, going into Genesee County. Otherwise, we do still have a lot of sunshine. Now, here's the clouds and radar forecast. A few of those clouds popping up again here in Southeast Michigan. A stray shower is possible as we go into the evening hours. Again, most of us staying dry, but if you get a couple of drops, don't be surprised. Clouds and radar for tomorrow, a very similar situation with a couple of pop-up showers possible into the afternoon and evening hours. Otherwise, we have a mixture of sunshine and clouds here in Southeast Michigan. Now, when we are looking at midweek, Wednesday, that's when we have the best chance of showers and thunderstorms here in Southeast Michigan. Those showers will be moving toward Southeast Michigan in the morning. I think we get a couple in the late morning hours and the early afternoon. Those would just be a couple of showers coming through. But the main line impacting us will be in the evening, and that's going to be the line that could be embedded with some strong to severe thunderstorms. So that's going to be looking as we go into Wednesday night, like that's going to be the time frame of the concern for us with those storms. We go into Thursday morning, and the activity is moving out of Southeast Michigan. So here's that risk for us here in Southeast Michigan. It includes all of us in Southeast Michigan. But as you go farther toward the west, that is where we're going to have that increased threat, the level 2 category in the yellow. Otherwise, we're in the level 1 as we go into the thumb and on the east side of Detroit and the Grosse Pointes. 64 for the low tonight as you go into Metro Airport. Some of us slightly cooler in Ann Arbor, also in the thumb. 88 for the high tomorrow. We are getting closer to 90-degree readings, and we will hit that as we go into next week. So 86 for Wednesday, storms rolling through, particularly at night. Thursday, 82 degrees, and we have overnight night lows in the 60s. Friday, we welcome summer at nighttime, and then going back into the weekend, temps on the rise. 87 for Saturday, 92 on Sunday, and on Monday, as a lot of people are looking forward to the 4th fireworks, we could see a high of 95. Ooh, and if we hit 95, that would be a match and tie for our record high.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. We'll be prepared. All right, thanks, Ron. All right, Hobie, what we got?
Weather was pretty at Comerica Park over the weekend. The end result, not too pretty for the Tigers. We'll dive into that coming up in sports.
It's only 2 games, but when you get so used to winning, it's
I know
hard
it feels like the sky's falling, but still the Tigers at the top of the MLB standings right now. Well, the Tigers lost back-to-back games for the first time in 3 weeks, dropping only their 3rd home series of the year over the weekend. It is disappointing, but no time to panic for a team that still has the best record in Major League Baseball. The Tigers had 3 errors in that series finale. Maybe the most concerning thing, reliever Will Vest left the game early, TBD on his status. They are off today as they welcome the Pirates on Tuesday with a few things to clean up before Pittsburgh.
But yeah, we had too many misplays to win the series, and that's disappointing. And we can take some things away from it and go be better.
Long season, and so far we've been playing really good. I mean, it's not judged nobody. It's just part of the game. Missed opportunities, I guess, and tough loss.
When the Rocket Classic begins next week, the field will be filled with great golfers, including the most recent winner of a major. The final round of the U.S. Open was about who could weather the storm, both literally and figuratively. J.J. Spawn started slow on Sunday, but picked it up after a rain delay right there, finishing as the only golfer under par, sinking a birdie from 65 feet out to clinch the win at 1 under. His first major win and only the 2nd overall win of his PGA Tour career.
It's definitely like a storybook fairy tale ending, yeah, with the rain and everything, and then the putt. I mean, it's just, you couldn't write a better story. And I'm just so fortunate to be on the receiving end of that.
The GOAT, she's coming back home to defend her undisputed heavyweight championship this summer. Claressa Shields will fight at LCA in July, taking on Lonnie Daniels, putting her 16-0 record on the line. Shields has climbed to the top of her sport, and she's planning to stay there as she gets ready to face yet another contender.
She's tiny, but she looks like she's in good shape. That's what my first impression was. But I mean, listen, I can't feel bad for these girls. You know, I think she's going to bring she's going to try to be a tough fight. But I think I'm just too much for all these girls, honestly.
Never lacks confidence, that's for sure. And Olympic hockey rosters coming together, each country announcing their first 6 players. 2 Red Wings selected for the games in Italy. Mo Seider named to Germany's roster. Lucas Raymond will play for his home country. Raymond won the bronze in the last 2 World Championships, while Seider has played in 40 World Championship games for Germany. 2 young stars for the Wings now getting to show off on the international stage again at the Olympics.
Cool. Yeah,
I'm excited. All right.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas is up next.
And before we go, a reminder, you can watch the Detroit mayoral debate tonight at 7 o'clock only on Local 4 and Local 4 Plus. We'll see you back here for Local 4 News at 11.
The future of Detroit. Come 2026, the city will have a new leader for the first time in 12 years. After periods of struggle and scandal, then recovery, and now stability and growth. Who is the best to continue the city's momentum while also improving upon what Detroiters say is still keeping them from a better life? Tonight, candidates for mayor come together to debate the topics that matter most to the voters in a live event brought to you by AARP Michigan and WDIV Local 4. Good evening and welcome to the Gretchen C. Valet Jazz Center on the campus of Wayne State University. My name is Jason Colthorpe. I'm the moderator tonight, and before we meet our candidates tonight, I do want to get to a message from the AARP, which has partnered with us to sponsor this debate. Here's Paula Cunningham.
Good evening, Detroit. I'm Paula Diane Cunningham, State Director of AARP Michigan, which is the proud sponsor of tonight's mayoral debate. On behalf of our tens of thousands of AARP members right here in Detroit and our 1,250,000 members across this great state, we say welcome. We are gathered in one of America's most iconic and resilient cities, built by auto workers, teachers, laborers, and neighbors, many of them who are now older adults who stayed here, paid their taxes here, raised their families here, and never stopped believing in Detroit. Tonight's debate is about them and about all of us. We'll hear about issues that matter to them, from better transit, affordable housing, safer streets, and building a city that works for every generation. Detroit is Michigan's largest urban center, and it has always been and continues to be a driving force behind our state's economy. When Detroit rises, we all rise. A special thanks to WDIV for hosting tonight's debate. And of course, I want to thank all of the candidates for their willingness to serve and to lead this great city. Now let's get started. Jason, back to you.
Thank you, Paula. Yeah, let's get started indeed. Welcome our candidates tonight participating in tonight's debate. In alphabetical order, James Craig, Sauntil Jenkins, Solomon Kinlock Jr., and Mary Sheffield. I told them only to applaud once, and that explains the lengthy applause. Well done. I've asked the audience tonight to politely wait until the end of the debate for any more applause. First, though, before we get going, I want to make clear these four candidates were chosen to participate tonight on recent polling done by the Glenn Gariff Group. Polling you can take a much closer look at our website, clickondetroit.com. Any candidate who polled at 10%, including the margin of error of 4 points or higher, was invited to participate in this debate. And these are the four candidates only who met that threshold. So we say welcome and thank you for being here. The rules for tonight's debate, pretty simple. Everyone gets an opening and a closing statement. And in between, I'll ask a question that each candidate will have 1 minute to answer. If a rebuttal is required because of something that was said by another candidate, they will have 30 seconds to respond to that after everyone has answered the original question. Candidates have agreed that if they do not wrap up their statement in a timely manner, they could have their microphone muted. Our questions, well, they're your questions. They're based on the issues Detroiters determined to be the most important in this election, per that polling I was talking about earlier. We also are going to hear a question tonight from our partners at the AARP, a volunteer who's with us tonight, and a member of the Michigan Chronicle, our media partner. Are you guys ready? Yes. Well, let's go. We drew the order of our 90-second opening statements right before the show, and the order will go like this: Kinlock, Jenkins, Sheffield, and Craig. Mr. Kinlock, you're up first.
I'm Solomon Kinlock Jr., and I'm running as a candidate for mayor of the city of Detroit. For the last 27 years, I've served as senior pastor of Triumph Church. In those 27 years that I've served as pastor, I have not sought to use that pulpit as a pedestal in order to promote myself as an individual, but I've sought to use that platform and that pulpit to elevate others and lift an entire community of people. I am not running for mayor tonight simply for myself. I'm running for mayor for you. I'm running for mayor because I spent my life in direct action for neighborhoods and not just downtown. As mayor, I'll be a mayor for all people. I'll make sure that we build 10,000 affordable units and create 100,000 jobs. We'll get rid of the food desert. I'll make sure that we have good schools with a chief educational officer. And I'll make sure that we build a Detroit that works for everybody.
Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. I am Santil Jenkins. Our next mayor will face a difficult financial reality, including finding replacement revenue for nearly $1 billion that this city has received since 2020 in COVID funding. They'll have to do that on day one while leading this city and continuing the progress that we've seen for the last decade. That's why I'm running for mayor, because we need a mayor with experience in government and outside of government, from Focus Hope to Mariners Inn to City Council to THAW. I have served Detroiters for over 30 years, including 10 years of legislative experience and over 10 years as a CEO. Tonight, you will hear my plan that puts people first. That's what we need in our next mayor, someone who puts people first because they have the head and the heart for our city. The head is the unique experience I bring to the table, and the heart is my compassion for you, for all Detroiters. At the end of this debate, you will see why I am the right candidate to be mayor in the city of Detroit at this time in our history. Thank you.
Ms. Sheffield.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. It has been an absolute honor to serve Detroit. I'm ready to take our city to the next level and ensure that we're building a Detroit that works for everyone. Under my leadership, we have restored civility, decorum, and a spirit of collaboration that has allowed us to be a partner in the growth of our city. We have record investments in economic development, $1 billion in creating affordable housing, 50-year record low crime. We've invested in over 150 city parks. We've prevented displacement of our families through right to counsel, and we've invested over $40 million in home repair grants for our seniors and disabled. But we know, Detroit, that there is still much more work to be done. And with my experience, my record of getting things done, I am ready day one to ensure that we're building on the foundation that has been laid. My administration will focus on affordable housing and home ownership, providing better outcomes for education for our students, strengthening public safety, investing in our neighborhoods, and of course, building our middle class with good, high wage and livable wage jobs, ensuring that Detroiters are prepared and trained to get those jobs. Detroit, we can get it done, so let's get to work.
Mr. Craig.
Thank you, Detroit. I am so excited to be here this evening. 44 years as a public servant, 12 years leading complex organization. I just have to say that the best 8 years was my last 8 years leading the Detroit Police Department. And also 8 additional years leading as a command officer in one of Los Angeles' toughest communities. I'm a proven leader. I have the stability. This is not a time for a candidate or a mayor for on-the-job training. Day one, when I start, I will lead this great city like I did as your chief. We have to get it right, Detroit. I lead through transparency, I'm ethical, and I'm results-oriented. We must get it right. We have this one chance. I'm the leader. I'm your mayor that can get it right. Thank you.
All right, let's get to our first question. And Ms. Jenkins, you'll have the first answer, and then we'll go right on down the line. It's about public safety. With crime, drugs, and guns cited as the top concern by primary voters in a recent WDIV Detroit News poll, what specific strategies will you implement in your first year to reduce violent crime in neighborhoods, not just downtown? Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you. This question is not more important to anybody on this stage than me because I lost my 14-year-old brother to gun violence. We have to make prevention a part of our crime reduction strategy and not just over-police our communities into safety. We have to make sure that the good men and women of our police department have the resources that they need for real community policing throughout the city of Detroit. And we have to have safe spaces and places for our young people between the most dangerous hours of the day, and that is 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. In addition, we have to have mental health resources so that we are not criminalizing mental health, ensuring that our officers, our neighborhoods have all of the resources that they need to increase safety throughout the city of Detroit. Thank you.
Mr. Craig.
And thank you for that question. Certainly leading so many police departments in my time, I have the answer. First and foremost, community policing, building trust-based relationships in our community. When I got here in 2013, the community didn't trust the police department. When I got here in 2013, we had a response time of over an hour. We had a clearance rate to homicides of 11%. We held people accountable. And during that holding people accountable, we changed the organization. As your mayor, I will continue to build on the successes that we realized during my tenure. The work still needs to be done, but we still have to focus on our neighborhood police officers, Green Light Detroit, a couple of the initiatives that we brought to bear that's shown success. We saw a steady decline in violent crime, particularly in the area of carjacking, from 800 one year to just over 200 in my last full year. Thank you.
Ms. Sheffield.
Thank you. So I believe any thriving community, the foundation is public safety. And without a doubt, Detroit has become more safe. But if people don't feel safe, we have a lot more work to do. And so my goal would be to build on the success that has taken place thus far, particularly within community violence intervention, where we have organizations that go out into our neighborhoods. And within those zip codes, we've seen a 50% reduction in crime in those areas. I do believe we do need more boots on the ground, old school community policing like we used to have, in a way that does not over-police but builds trust. We also do have to focus more on prevention. We cannot police our way out of gun violence or public safety. We have to address and invest in more youth programming, recreation, and activities that give our young people productive things to do. I also believe that we have to continue to fund the social issues that breed crime in our community, which is mental health, education, and housing, to ensure that we're actually investing in the root cause. Gun Violence Prevention Office is something that I have always fought for and would love to see formed within the first 100 days of my term, which treats it as a public health crisis.
Mr. Kinloch?
Every resident in the city of Detroit deserves at least two things: safety and justice. And the quickest way we get to both is by, first of all, understanding that people need jobs and opportunity. If you're going to decrease crime, we got to give people opportunity. And we got to make sure that we have the resources appropriated so that we're not allocating those resources to costly settlements. When we just look, because sometimes you can be so close to the forest you can't see the trees. When we just look at the fact that in the last 3 years, City Council approved more than $63 million in DPD settlements. At some point, we got to ask ourselves, how many more officers could we put on the street? How much more equipment? How many more mental professionals could we equip our department with? And how many more officers would have loved to have that pay in their salaries?
Our next question comes from our media partner, the Michigan Chronicle. I'd like to invite the executive editor up to the stage, Jeremy Allen. Mr. Craig, you'll get the first answer on this.
Thank you so much, and greetings to the candidates. On behalf of our publisher, Mr. Hiram E. Jackson, we want to thank you for involving the Michigan Chronicle in such an important debate. For the candidates, as Detroit continues to grow and revitalize, the need for affordable housing remains critical. With a strained city budget and rising developmental costs, how do you propose Detroit can increase its affordable housing stock without relying heavily on state or federal funds? And what new or underutilized revenue streams can the city tap into to subsidize the affordable housing?
Mr. Craig.
As we know, we have an affordable housing crisis here in the city of Detroit. 44,000 is what we need. Currently in the pipeline, we have 1,900, not even making a dent. Part of what I want to do is stimulate and grow the middle class. That means home ownership. But it goes even beyond that. I have a program, CityStat, like ComStat, what I brought to the Detroit Police Department. And in that program, I'm going to track everything that can be tracked, including affordable housing. But we have to give incentives to the developers. We have to educate our community on financial literacy. And so I'm poised to grow the middle class, but also understanding the importance of driving small business. I understand what it's like to work with small business. I alluded to in my first statement, Green Light Detroit.
Okay. Ms. Sheffield?
Yeah, so housing is extremely important to this city, and it's something that I'm very proud that we have invested to date $1 billion in the creation and preservation of affordable housing. That is not an easy feat. But what I would say is that how do we keep it going is, one, we have to address the fact that the cost of construction and doing affordable housing in Detroit is extremely high. So oftentimes we do need to provide abatements to allow for the numbers to match out. We also have to address the real issue, which is we have extremely high property taxes in Detroit, which is a barrier to both businesses and residents. And so structural property tax reform is at the forefront of what I will bring as mayor. We also have to lean onto our community-based, faith-based institutions who are anchors in our communities who would love to redevelop and provide housing within our communities. And we need to provide them with the support and tools that they need to be able to revitalize our communities through housing. We also have something called the Detroit Housing for the Future Fund, which partners with some of our banks and other philanthropic support that provides the gap financing that oftentimes developers need.
Mr. Kinloch?
And here is why I got into this race. Because whenever you got to stand over a family and 2 young children end up dead because they froze together in the frigid cold, I don't care how much good we've done, it ain't enough. When we start talking about we built $1 billion in housing, when the median income in this city is less than $40,000 a year, you cannot say you're building affordable housing when the average person in this city is not making $800 a week. We have to do something more in order to make sure that people have a pathway to the greatest opportunity to build wealth. Down payment assistance, we can use the tools that are at our discretion, like tax abatement and incentives, in order to give people credit that live in a home to maintain a home and to repair the home. But also, we got to make sure that we leverage the tool like the land bank in order to give them access the same way.
Ms. Jenkins?
I have to agree with my colleague on this. When you brag about all you've done, and a mother had to bury her babies because she could not find affordable housing in spite of reaching out to the city time and time again, especially as someone who chairs a housing and homelessness task force, you have failed our residents. I would utilize housing bonds to reduce the cost of building affordable housing so that we can offer it at better rates. I would create a down payment assistance program and make sure that we're building housing for Detroiters at every income level and every stage of their life. As we look at our AARP participants here, our seniors need affordable, decent, quality housing as well, and I would work every day to ensure that Detroiters had access to that.
All right, our next question. Let's stay in the neighborhoods. I didn't hear a direct attack in there, did I? I'm gonna move on to the next question. We can address it in the next question, which is about neighborhood investment. Despite downtown revitalization, many people in the neighborhoods drive around and they still see corridors of boarded up storefronts. What is your plan? And please offer some specific examples to attract and sustain development in the neighborhoods. You do have the first answer here, Michelle.
Thank you. And so for me, we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional about marketing our neighborhoods for development within inner city communities. I think it's important that we continue to offer tools similar to what we have in the DDA, which allows us to capture taxes within our communities and neighborhoods to provide redevelopment into our neighborhoods. We should start with our commercial corridors, with our community anchors, who are legacy institutions in our communities that we can grow around and use them as anchors to redevelop. What's most important when it comes to neighborhood development is that two things. One, we utilize neighborhood input and understand what community wants in those neighborhoods, but also that we are making it easier for grocery stores, coffee shops, and restaurants to open up shop in Detroit by refining some of the internal processes that makes it difficult to do business in Detroit. And so my plan would be to reform a lot of the internal red tape to prevent businesses from setting up shop, but also partnering with neighborhoods and Detroit-based businesses to ensure that we're revitalizing our corridors in our inner city communities.
Mr. Kinlock?
We got to be intentional about how we address it. And one of the ways we do that is not just casting a vision, but mapping out a plan and having metrics to measure that plan. One of the first things I would do in my first 100 days is to convene, because one of the things that you're able to do as the mayor is not just cast vision, communicate that vision, but also convene the stakeholders. I believe that we got some of the greatest partners in philanthropic and in corporate industry right here in the city. We need to convene that table in order for us to come up with a we plan and not a me plan. I believe that we can accomplish that by coming up with an economical model in order to construct homes that people in the city of Detroit can afford themselves.
Ms. Jenkins.
Yes, I would have a strategic master plan in each of the 7 districts throughout the city of Detroit that would be built with the residents in the city of Detroit. And that master plan would include land use, it would include public safety, transit, education, and there would be commercial corridors in each of the 7 districts. And once we create this plan for each of the 7 districts that the residents have said that they want, we will offer incentives. If you live in the city of Detroit and you can bring a coffee shop, a movie theater, or a bakery, whatever the residents have decided, if you live in the city, you get more incentives. And if you live in that district, you get the highest number of incentives. That way, we're not only creating commercial corridors throughout our city, but we're also building generational wealth for the people who live here.
Mr. Craig?
Yes, you know, one of the things I've talked extensively about, we need to really reform Land Bank Detroit. It doesn't work very well. And I know the mayor doesn't totally control it, but certainly can fund it and change and make decisions. Look, there's a lot of those land bank homes that could be used for first-time home buyers in Detroit. I'm proposing a tiered program so that first Detroiters, not foreign investors coming in Detroit, who buy the land and the homes and leave them in a dilapidated state. There has to be accountability across the board. But not just that, we need to really streamline how we do business here in the city of Detroit. Comes to mind, there's a great little place on the east side of Detroit, Sister Pie. Many of you may know it. The place had lines wrapped around it. It's out of business now. So what kind of support can we give to a thriving business? I recognize that Ford and certainly Wayne State Tech Center, they do a lot of support for up and coming businesses. We have got to do that because sustainability is important.
Thank you. We're not quite at the halfway point, but we're going to take a quick time out, catch our breath, and be right back here at Wayne State University watching the Detroit mayoral debate right here on Local 4. Welcome back to the Gretchen C. Valet Jazz Center on the campus of Wayne State University for tonight's Detroit mayoral debate. Let's get right back into the questions with our candidates. And this next set of questions are for each of you individually. I'm going to start with candidate Kinloch. You have said you would still run your church and preach on Sundays if you're elected mayor. How can you do both effectively when most agree that being mayor is a 24/7 job?
Well, let me be clear. I will be a full-time mayor 2.0. But I understand leadership because you can be an executive and not be a leader, but you can't be a leader and not be an executive. One of the things that I understand is how to build teams. A church that's 105 years old cannot be ran and operated by one person alone. It takes a team of people. Just like I cannot pastor alone, I would not be the mayor alone. You have a deputy mayor, you have a chief of staff, you have chief operating officer, you have department heads. I will be a full-time mayor, but I will be a mayor that will go to church on Sunday, and when he goes to church on Sunday, he will preach. What's wrong with a mayor that has a Christian conscience?
Ms. Jenkins, this question is for you. The last time you were elected to city council, you resigned just a year into your term. Why should voters trust you're going to be totally committed this time if you're elected mayor?
Because I've been totally committed to Detroit my entire life. I was at the city council table during the bankruptcy. My last day at council, we announced that we were exiting the bankruptcy, and then I went to do something very similar to what our current mayor did when he left the prosecutor's office early. I went to be a CEO at an organization that was helping vulnerable families, very much like the one I grew up in. I know what it feels like to live in a house with no heat and no water. And I've been able to help our most vulnerable citizens across the city over the last 10 years. We provided more than $100 million in assistance to the most vulnerable families, and I'm very proud of that fact. In addition, I am even more prepared today for this moment in our city's history. Thank you.
Mr. Craig, for you, in a recent poll that we've talked about, we know we've talked about it tonight, Detroit primary voters saying crime is one of their top concerns. But they also in that same poll say they view you more unfavorably than any of the other 8 candidates in this race. What do you say to the voters who think someone other than the former police chief is the one to improve crime in the city?
Well, you know, I appreciate you asking me the question, and I'm going to tell you why. When I was the Detroit police chief and the deputy mayor, at one point, Mayor Duggan called me in the office and said, you know, you got a 75% approval rating. Politicians would crave for that. Let me just say it simply. I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. I'm a Detroiter first. Yes, I'm a conservative. I was a conservative Democrat, and now I'm a Republican. Unfavorability comes down to one thing: partisan, partisan, partisan. What makes me different now? I was effective as your police chief, and I was a Republican. Nothing changes. I got the job done, and so I understand the concern that some folks have. My commitment is I will lead like I did as the police chief, and as your mayor, I will do the same thing without partisan politics. It doesn't work. And by the way, every city I've worked and led in.
Time. Ms. Sheffield, for you, you've been criticized for missing committee meetings on city council. As many as 90% of the planning and economic development standing meetings over the last 3 years. How can voters trust that you'll be committed to the job as mayor when your recent record suggests otherwise?
So I think it's unfortunate that whoever published that article took that route. And this is what happens when you have no substance, you have no record, and no policy to run on. I'm an ex officio member of every committee as the council president. I preside over the formal session, which I chair on Tuesdays. And so no sitting council president goes to every single committee because you're ex officio of them all. So it's a false report. And again, this is what we go back to in politics when you don't have substance, when you don't have a record, and you're not sure what you're running on. I think Detroiters prefer to hear about my plan and vision, what I've done for Detroit. Now, let me be clear. We have not done everything right. And I've done as much as I can as a city council president to move this city forward. And we're going to build on that foundation that we've laid to ensure that everyone in this city benefits from the growth of Detroit.
The next question, I'd like to invite onto the stage Ann Lindsay, who's a volunteer with our sponsor tonight, AARP of Michigan. And when she's done, Ms. Jenkins, you'll have the first answer. Hi, Ann. Good evening.
Hi, Jason. Thank you so much. As he stated, my name is Ann Lindsay. I am a retired vice principal, a resident of Detroit, and a very proud member of AARP Michigan, volunteer. In a recent AARP survey, Detroiters indicated that they are facing many challenges. Most of all, housing cost, also utilities, limited access to fresh food, and senior services. Nearly half of Detroiters are 50 years or older. In your view, what do you believe is the biggest challenge facing older people in our city? And what do you think you can do about it?
Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you for the question. I think the biggest challenge depends on which of our older citizens that we're talking to. As a social worker, I understand how systems work. My mentor, Marian Mahaffey, told me social workers put Band-Aids on wounds caused by poor public policy. So as your mayor, I understand how poor public policy impacts housing, utilities, food, and senior services. I would bring back our senior citizens department. It would not be a division within a department. There would be full-time senior advocates on the ground in the city every day fighting to ensure that our citizens, our aging citizens, have a better quality of life. I am visiting senior citizens across this city, and the conditions that they are living in, we should be ashamed of as a city. So I would address all of the issues of our residents, including our seniors, and making sure that there's housing for them to age in place.
Mr. Craig.
Well, first of all, I'm a senior, so I know some of you didn't know that, did you? But I certainly would work with negotiating with service providers. I would start a Department of Aging, but I want to talk specifically about something that's near and dear to me. I'm a fitness person, a healthy eater, and we recognize that with the food deserts, a lot of our seniors are not getting the healthy choices. I would partner with Kroger's. I would partner with Whole Foods connected to Amazon, because in partnering that, they can deliver fresh options to their doorstep. That's critically important. And then fitness. I took a look at the fitness. I started when I was the chief in DPD, something called DPD Fit. I know how important fitness is. For our seniors, fitness is critically important. Critically important. So I would partner, like I did when I was in DPD, with Planet Fitness and work and create...
Time. Okay. Ms. Sheffield.
Thank you. So having served for 12 years on the city council and representing the highest amount of senior buildings in Detroit, I know intimately the issues of our seniors. And I would say it does depend on who you speak with, but overall, I would say one pressing issue that I know most seniors in Detroit would probably agree on, and that is access to home repair grants. We have some of the oldest housing stock in the country. And when you have residents who have been in their home 30, 40, 50 years, and they're not going anywhere, but they need their roof fixed or their porch or the windows repaired, we need more access to home repair grants, which I'm very proud under my leadership. We saved the program. We have $40 million that we've invested in home repair grants for our seniors and disabled, and we will continue that, partnering with our hospitals and other institutions to ensure residents have access to home repair grants. Also, transportation is a big one. I do believe that we should have a dedicated, centralized department that addresses the need of our seniors who are aging in place to ensure that they have the resources and the support that they need. Under my leadership, we also started a mobile food program that I would like to see continued.
Mr. Kinlock.
One of the benefits that I have as being a senior pastor is that I get to stand at the altar and hear the most intimate concerns of some of our residents. I was in a senior complex today. I've been in at least 2 every day for the last several weeks, months. And one of the things that they are concerned about is not themselves. They're concerned about what type of world that they're going to leave behind for their children and their grandchildren. And they want to make sure that their children got opportunities. One of the reasons I got in this race, and one of the reasons so many other people who are ordinary people getting in races across this country, is because the people that are in power and in these positions are not delivering for us, and we got to do something different. One of the ladies asked me today, what makes you different? And I said to her, what makes me different is that I'll be a mayor that you can trust.
Next question. Unemployment was 7.5% in Detroit in April. Did I get to everybody on that last question, by the way? Did everybody answer that? Yeah. Unemployment was 7.5% in Detroit in April. What's your plan to address this and not just create jobs, but jobs that provide a livable wage? Mr. Craig, you're up first on this.
You know, I appreciate the question because I was on the front seat when Mayor Duggan negotiated with Stellantis to bring a plant in the city after 30 years. As your mayor, I will continue to do that. I will continue, but just not the large corporations, but also smaller. But here's one thing that really shocked me. He negotiated 3,500 Detroiters to be hired by Stellantis. The challenge, they had to take an entry exam, and a good number of Detroiters failed. I know we haven't talked a lot about it during this session. Public schools are critically important. They are broken. Now, I recognize that the mayor does not control the schools, but the mayor can use his bully pulpit. The mayor can be a partner. I have worked as a police chief in the schools to turn the trajectory of young children that could not read. We need to do that because we can talk about economic development.
Time. Ms. Sheffield?
Yeah, so this is very, very important because at the end of the day, as Detroit rises, if the people here are not rising, it means nothing. There was a University of Michigan study that indicated that over half of Detroit workers are not making a livable wage. So it's not just about job creation, it's about the quality of the jobs. So my goal will be to continue to invest in workforce development as much as we can, ensuring that Detroiters have the skills and are equipped for the jobs of today and of tomorrow. That we're bringing these resources back into our community. We oftentimes don't have enough access points for people to get the skills and the training that they need. We also have to partner with our hospitals and institutions and building trades to ensure that skilled trades is exposed to our youth as well. I also think it's important that we as a city hone in on math, reading, literacy, and tutoring to ensure that our children and our youth have the proper training to ensure that they are prepared for these jobs. And then lastly, through responsible contracting, which is an ordinance that I passed, we are incentivizing contractors who actually do pay livable wages.
Mr. Kinlock?
One of the things we can do is start to take care of the people that are already doing the work. We already have baseline industries, whether you talk about airport, whether you talk about the medical industry, whether you talk about municipal workers. You already have baseline industries. Let's make sure. I was on the bus riding along with the transient advocates. And up until recently, they went 20 years. They went 20 years without competitive pay. And they losing their drivers to other municipal systems because they're not being paid competitively. When Chief Craig talked about Stellantis, I held a Stellantis career fair at my church, and 900 people with postgraduate degrees showed up, and they wanted to know where were y'all at. And I said, they've been here all the time. Y'all just didn't know where to look, and y'all just didn't come to the right stakeholders to talk to them.
Ms. Jenkins?
I will start by being a mayor who is a champion for education throughout our city and ensure that our schools are creating pathways to take our children from cradle to career and beyond. I would also ensure that we are properly utilizing our workforce development dollars by partnering with companies, with healthcare, with schools and other industries of today and tomorrow. We should be asking, what are the jobs you're hiring for today? What will you be hiring for 12 months from now? And what will you be hiring for 5 years from now? And that's how we should be planning our workforce training to ensure that when we go after companies like a Stellantis, when they show up, our workforce is already prepared for high-paying jobs that will enable them to take care of themselves and their families.
Did anyone want a 30-second rebuttal, Mr. Craig? No on that?
No.
Well, you guys teed up education beautifully right there. Let's dive a little deeper into that, because part of our survey showed that the majority of Detroiters feel public schools are worse off than they were 10 years ago, and a lot of you addressed it. But let's get specific with a two-part question. What do you think has held DPSCD back, and what would you do to fix it? Ms. Sheffield, you're up first.
Yeah, so I think it's a myriad of issues, but I think for me, more importantly, is how do we move forward? And so while the mayor does not control DPSCD, the mayor can be involved in changing outcomes. And so I will partner with the DPSCD, our superintendent, and create a commission that brings DPSCD and our charter schools together to measure the outcomes of our youth. We know that absenteeism is the #1 issue facing our school system. And so we will partner to address absenteeism, after-school programming, literacy, and tutoring to ensure that we're greater partners. Also, we can partner more on the social issues that oftentimes prevent our youth from showing up to school and give the support to families as well. Lastly, right now, every student that graduates from high school can get post-secondary education. We have to do a better job in ensuring more participation in the Detroit Promise, and through the mayor's office, we will track our program that ensures more of our graduates get into post-secondary education. So again, it's less about control, it's more about changing the outcomes for our youth.
Mr. Kinloch?
We've been talking about fixing these school systems forever. And what I often refer to is that those plans are like cookbooks, but they don't cook, people do. You got to put the right people in place to make sure that the execution is getting done. I will be an educational mayor. The city of Detroit's residents have already decided that they want their school system to be governed by elected officials. What we lack is a comprehensive vision and a strategy on how to get there. In my first 100 days, I will appoint a chief educational officer that will work along with the school system in order to make sure that we're not just saying the kids are not showing up to school, because you can't fix the problem if you're just trying to plug up the leak. We got to figure out why these kids are not showing up to school, and we know what they are. There are so many social issues that we are ignoring and we're not addressing, and we will have somebody in the mayor's office to complement those services.
Time. Ms. Jenkins.
This is another area where experience matters. I've worked in underperforming schools across this country, including the schools right here in the city of Detroit. I've had multiple conversations with our leaders in schools about what they need today, and they need help addressing the social determinants that are holding our kids back. We would expand a program that we had at Thought called Pathways to Potential, where we had people on the ground in the schools a couple days a week, so parents didn't have to go looking for help for basic needs. The help was right there on the ground. In addition, I would partner with schools to attract high-quality teachers. We have high-quality teachers in the system now, but we need more. And I'd say if you come to our city, you teach our kids, you live here, you can get a land bank house for free, and we'll give them a grant to repair the house. And it will create density in our neighborhoods. It will create more talent in our schools. And then lastly, safe spaces and places. Thank you.
Mr. Craig.
Yes, I'm going to go a little controversial. Many of you know that I'm not afraid of that, but I'm going to call it like it is. You know, we've been talking about the schools, as the pastor indicated. Nothing's been done. Let me say, when I came in as police chief, if I performed like the superintendent's been performing, in 6 months I would have been fired. That's one. Now, that's the superintendent I inherit. As a mayor, my commitment is I will work with him. We talk about absenteeism. Do we know why the absentee rate is what it is? Let me tell you, I'm going to give you, this is not as controversial, but here's the issue. The morale of the teachers is at the bottom. When people who do the real work, like the police officers, when their morale is at the bottom, leaders know how to work with the folks in those environments. The teacher's morale is down. These children go into those environments, and guess what? They don't want to be there. When we started our city camp in Detroit Public Schools, the reason why the children came...
All right, next question. Let's talk about property taxes. I've heard it mentioned tonight, but what steps specifically would you take to reduce the property tax burden on citizens while still maintaining essential city services? Mr. Kinloch, you have the first answer.
Well, we have to admit that is a problem that didn't happen overnight, and it ain't going to be solved overnight. The previous administrations couldn't do it, but what we can do is make sure that we have continuity. So as we come into office and we come to administration, we got to make sure the trajectory with the Haley Act giving us the room that as the debt capacity continues to decrease, what we would do is continue to decrease the millage and the points. But one of the things we have to do is continue to lobby and work with the state in order to make sure that we deal with the real issue, which is the structure and the system and how we are disproportionately overtaxed in the city of Detroit.
Ms. Jenkins?
Yes. Property taxes and income taxes together are about 40% of the city's revenue. In order to effectively reduce our property taxes, we have to find another source of revenue. We can continue to reduce the millage gradually, but it does not give real relief to Detroiters. So I would go with finding a new revenue source, such as what I'm calling a penny for Detroiter local tax. And that 1 cent could generate over $100 million, which would give us a revenue source that enables us to dramatically reduce our property taxes and make it more affordable to buy a home and live here. It will also make it more affordable to build homes and to open businesses here.
Mr. Craig?
Yes, that's a very complicated question for this reason. We talk a lot about, stabilization of property taxes, but there's a tie-in. We got to continue to drive small business and large corporation development so we can keep those taxes down. If we don't do that, it's just not going to happen. Also, we have to leverage our state partners, and yes, the White House. We have to have a mayor that can reach out and touch for the assistance, not just in this area, but we need to have that relationship where we can get the funds, because let's face it, what we're looking at in the future, ARPA funds are running out next year. What are we going to replace it with? We don't know. I'm calling for an independent, and I said independent forensic audit on the financial health of our city. You need to know, I need to know, because that's how we can make prudent decisions going forward.
Ms. Sheffield?
Thank you. So structural property tax reform, something I'm very passionate about and have spoke about previously. I believe that in order to achieve it, we do have to identify an alternative source of revenue. And I think it's very important that in these very challenging times politically, that we do look at ways to diversify our revenues outside of our traditional methods that we have now. And so I believe that we are not capitalizing on the economic activity that is happening in downtown Detroit to the benefit that we should. And so one thing that I propose is looking at a local sales option tax or a half penny tax is what we proposed. But I think all of those have to be thoroughly studied to ensure that there is no detrimental impact on our residents. But of course, if you reduce property taxes, you do have to have another stream. And I would like to see it come from some of the economic activity in our greater downtown or possibly a local sales option tax that needs to be thoroughly studied before we move forward with that option.
Well, we're running tight on time. My producer's going to kill me, but I'm going to jam one more question in. Just give me a short answer on this, if you would. Most of you, I've heard you talk about you want to work with the business community, similar to what you've seen Mayor Mike Duggan do. This is the time to name drop. Give me some names specifically. You have a relationship that you feel you can cultivate to get projects, programs in motion on day one. Ms. Jenkins?
Thank you. I currently sit on the board for Henry Ford Hospital, the main campus, so I have relationships there. I have worked directly with DTE for the past 10 years to make sure that we were providing services to our most vulnerable residents across the state of Michigan. I was a trustee on the board of the Kresge Foundation until this past December. I have the experience, as I said, inside and outside of government to build the relationships and coalitions to get it done.
Mr. Craig?
I like the question because I've done so much work with small business in Detroit, and I'm talking about gas stations, party stores, liquor stores, small businesses with a neighborhood focus, and we drove violent crime down. That's a relationship that still exists to this day. I've been out of office for about 3 years, and anytime I go to a green light station, they get excited because they said our revenues are up because of this green light. I have the
time. Ms. Sheffield?
Thank you. So it's been a privilege to be able to work the business community the last 12 years. And I want people to be reminded that my district probably has received the most economic development in all 7 council districts. And so I've had the ability to build those relationships and looking forward to leveraging and building more of those because, as I've always stated, business needs people. And people need business. It does not have to be one or the other. And so we'll continue to strengthen those relationships as we move forward in Detroit because we do need our business community to be a part of the growth and economic revitalization of our city.
Mr. Kinlock?
We have some wonderful business allies and partners in the city of Detroit. The names can go on forever and ever. I had relationship with Wright Lassiter of Henry Ford. You got a tremendous leader there, Bob Riney. You got so many leaders, Jerry Narcia at DTE. You have so many, Bill Emerson at Bear Rock, and the names can go on. We got great partners at the table, and that's why I believe we're leaving resources and revenues on the table and not leveraging those resources and those revenues.
Thank you. I want to move on to our closing statements. These were also selected tonight. Ms. Sheffield will be followed by Ms. Jenkins, Mr. Craig, and Mr. Kinline. Ms. Sheffield, your closing statement, 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Detroit, you inspire me every single day. And it has been an absolute honor to serve in this city. I have been here with you, alongside you, fighting for you, whether it's in the streets, boots on the ground, connecting and empowering, or in the suites, passing policies and programs that directly impact your quality of life. We have accomplished so much, but we do know that there's still so much more that we can do together. Imagine a Detroit where housing is affordable, where our educational system is strong, where our neighborhoods are walkable and vibrant, where safety is a right and not a privilege, and where economic opportunities are within reach for every Detroiter. That's the Detroit that I believe in, that I'm fighting for. And with your vote, we can and we will get it done. So let's get to work, Detroit.
Ms. Jenkins.
Thank you for being here tonight. In order to have the Detroit that we all dream of, we have to have a leader who is experienced, prepared, and committed to doing the work. So the choice is clear. If you want a future that includes more guns in schools, locking up our kids, Craig is your guy. If you want a part-time mayor who's working 2 full-time jobs, Kinlock is ready. If you want a mayor who shows up on Instagram but doesn't show up for meetings, then follow Mary. But if you want a mayor who is committed to this city and will continue the progress that Mayor Duggan has brought to this city over the past decade, then keep thinking Jenkins. I am Santil Jenkins. I've worked in nonprofit, for-profit, business, and education. Thank you.
Mr. Craig?
The gloves are off now. Let's party. No, I'm okay with that. Because all of you know, first and foremost, I'm a Detroiter. I love this city. Both times that I lived here, I lived in the city of Detroit. I could have moved anywhere, but I stayed. And when I left service, I stayed. I'm a public servant, and I am not a politician. I'm not going to tell you something for feel good. I'm going to tell you how it is. And I did it as your chief, and many of you know that about me. I have, unlike my colleague, a proven track record of success. Now, let me tell you what a proven track record of success looks like. Executive level leadership. And let's not forget, a mayor has to be able to effectively handle a crisis. Let's think about 2020. Detroit City.
Time.
Okay.
Mr. Kinlock.
Some of my opponents tonight evidently have forgotten that construction does not happen by destruction, that you cannot build yourself up by tearing other people down. That's why we need a different type of leadership. I'm grateful tonight that we've had an opportunity in order to discuss the issues that are relevant to the citizens and the residents of this city. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity over the next 7 weeks that I'm going into every city council district holding my own forums, because I'm not interested and kissing the rings of individuals who believe that they got the right to talk on behalf of people, but I'm gonna talk to the people. Two things we need to know. Number one, what are we building in Detroit? And two, who can we trust to get it done? Lift every block with Ken Locke.
And that will be the last word tonight. Yes. How about a big round of applause for these candidates? And to everybody watching at home on Local 4, thank you so much for watching the Detroit mayoral debate tonight on WDIV. From Wayne State University, I'm Jason Colclough. Have a good night.